the cloud. I think that should be hopefully recording. Does anyone see a little recording button? I'm hoping. Awesome. Okay, perfect. So today I'm going to be talking to you all about job hunting in uncertain times. This is definitely a topic that definitely piqued my interest a while ago. I do a good amount of public speaking, and a while back I gave a presentation on business to business social media marketing at University of Dayton. And it was right when the kids started all going remote and all this stuff. And I had this like 10-minute session for Q&A, and I did this two presentations in a row, and both times the first student just raises his hand and goes, "So how do we find a job during all of this?" And I was just kind of just like, didn't know what to say. And so ever since that, I've kind of been working with my students and talking them through, hey, how do you find a job during this time? And that's kind of how this presentation came along in the first place, is I gave it to my students at Wright State. So a little bit about me. Hello, my name is Kaitlyn Nielsen. My pronouns are she, her. So I am a University of Dayton graduate. I graduated in entrepreneurship and marketing. I was an Alpha Phi Omega throughout my time at University of Dayton, and now I'm an advisor for the Wright State petitioning group. In my free time, I am also an oboist. I also am a swing dancer, and I am an avid, proud dog mom. That's really what you need to know about me. The gist right there. My dog is actually literally right behind me. He's right there. That's his chair. It's really cute. He'll be there the entire time. I also talk very fast, so just kind of be prepared for that. I grew up with lots of coffee and watching Gilmore Girls, bad combination. But I also do ask you all too, if you have any comments or anything that come up, I'm trying to figure out where the chat window went, but feel free to throw them in the chat. I would love to see what other things you're also doing in this sphere, what challenges you've come across, other things like that. Please put them in the chat. Please. Yes, everyone's pro dog. And I am going to be looking at the chat throughout this. I now found it. It's up. We're good. So yes, please use the chat. Okay, so my career. So this is going to focus a lot on what I like to call Kaitlyn story time. I do tell a lot of stories. I don't know if my students get annoyed with it or not. I also hop on soapboxes a lot, but that's just who I am. I'm a talker. I'm an extrovert. Quarantine is awful, but we're living, okay? So my career, I started out first as a marketing intern at a company called Commuter Ads. This was a startup company. You'll definitely hear the story of how I got my job in the first place. And I started there as a marketing intern for 2 summers and all through my senior year. And then after my senior year, I got promoted to be the marketing account director, or basically you could just say marketing director, because I was basically like the only marketing person in the company there at that time. While I was at Commuter Ads, I actually also hired and managed an internship program. And then about, a year and a half into that, 2 years into that, I ended up losing my job due to some structural changes in the company, which you'll probably also hear a little bit more on that. And then I had a kind of job hunt search where then I became a communications specialist at a website design development firm here in Dayton called Sparkbox. And I'm still there to this day. It's also given me a lot of advice on looking for how careers can change, because again, it's also a smaller company, a 10-year company, if you want to say like not startup, but like not mature company. I don't know if there's a really good word for that, but put it in the chat if you know it. I don't know. So today we're going to talk about 3 main things. The first one is finding opportunities. It's a big thing. I'll explain why in a second. Then we're going to talk about how to actually get the job. That's kind of right? This is kind of the area I feel like everyone talks about and likes to workshop certain things of it, but there's a whole things that goes into that entire process. And then we're going to kind of end on a huge kind of little idea of how uncertainty changes things. I am going to be bringing it up a little bit throughout as well, but I did want to kind of put a whole section on that as well, because this is a weird time for job hunting, especially depending on what you're doing and what you're looking for. So this is I made this little graphic, you can tell I'm not a graphic designer here, of the job hunt funnel, okay? So if you look at it, you're like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. It starts with all these opportunities, and then you get a call back and you get an interview, you get a second interview, you get an assignment or whiteboarding, and then you hopefully get an offer, and then you get a job, and yay, everyone's happy, right? Makes sense. If you've ever been through a job process, this is kind of how it goes. Obviously, it changes a little bit given each circumstance, but it kind of flows through the same process of, hey, it's an opportunity. we're kind of going through this weird middle section. Hey, it's an offer and a job, right? In uncertain times, this funnel changes to be a little bit different. The opportunities, I kept them larger. There's a reason for that. But it makes it harder to get past the opportunity section. So you might be looking at opportunities that aren't necessarily fit to your exact specifications. So you might still be putting all these opportunities at the top of the funnel to try and get something out of it, right? But then you're looking at, oh, now it's harder to actually get in the door. But if you notice, once you're in the door, it seems like a pretty straight path forward. They're just not going to waste time on someone that's not fitting their criteria because companies don't want to take risks during uncertain times. That's the key there, okay? So I want to take a little section here. I want to know what your career area is, what type of opportunities you're looking for, and that kind of stuff. That'll just help me as I'm giving this presentation to hopefully make it as personal to you all as possible. So I cannot see names anymore. I'm sorry, Zoom is annoying, but if someone can start and hopefully maybe call around or something, please just tell me what your career area is. And if, are you looking for a job right now or not? Or what kind of opportunity would you be looking for? Someone go. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Evan Harmon. I'm currently a corporate IT manager for Baptist Health Kentucky. And basically in my job role, I lead a team that carries out projects related to health information management, billing, coding, that kind of a thing. And like, I am about to start a job search. It's time for a change. I want to just build on what I've already have. So I want to be like a director. And I'm getting close enough to that years of management experience that would help me be more qualified for that type of a role. So that's kind of what I'm looking to do. I want to lead larger teams, kind of what I'm doing today, but like on an elevated level.
Awesome, thank you. Can you call on someone? I just can't see names. Thanks.
Yeah, Sean.
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself there. So I'm actually just re-entering the job search market after almost 9 years. My background is material science and engineering, focus in metallurgy. I've been process engineer, metallurgist, quality engineer over the years. And I'm looking to kind of go back into stick more toward the metallurgy side. So forging, aerospace, gear manufacturing. Basically, I want to stick to the manufacturing side of things, but more toward the metallurgical design side, test failure, that sort of thing.
Gotcha, cool, awesome, thank you. I see a call for Deidre. Is that how you pronounce your name?
It's Deirdre.
Deirdre, thank you.
I'm not currently looking for a job, but I actually was unemployed earlier in the year. The team I was on at the beginning of the year was cut in half in April, and then I started a new job in June, and I'm really happy where I'm at, but it was a very stressful couple of weeks there.
Yeah. So hopefully you can share some stories in the chat, hopefully with everyone as well. Or if you have something you really want to share, like please just jump on and share it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly worked with recruiters that were in the industry that I'm in.
Gotcha. What industry are you in, by the way?
Public accounting.
Gotcha.
And which it was kind of shocking that there was any kind of massive amounts of job layoffs in that industry to begin with. But I was already really unhappy at the firm I was at before and kind of looking for a change anyways. So it was a blessing in disguise for sure. And what I noticed was there was a lot of recruiters that I would talk to and then like send them my resume. It seemed like they were just collecting resumes, and some of those people I haven't heard back from until like a week ago. Collecting resumes and not really like being honest about what opportunities they had available. And there was only really 2 recruiters that were really, I felt, being honest with me. One of them did genuinely have like some open positions he was trying to fill for some of his clients, and then the other one was like, yeah, I don't know, but he would call me every week, so
gotcha.
That was my experience.
Gotcha. Stephanie, I've heard you're next.
Okay, it wouldn't let me unmute. I'm a teacher and I'm not currently looking for a job right now.
Kind of had a feeling. It's okay. Who else do we have on the call? I don't know who else is, so. Carolyn? Are you able to unmute? Oh, perfect. You're a Richie Grab looking for a job. Okay, awesome. What area are you in? If you can just quickly type that out. I'm a recent graduate looking for a job in biology. Okay, so awesome. So I'm glad some of you then came here today. I'm hoping that this will be helpful. My goal today really is just to help give hopefully a different perspective. I know a lot of people give presentations on how to job hunt. Everyone's probably done it before at some point, right? But I'm just hoping to give a different perspective. Again, I've kind of been on all different sides of the table. Where I also have been a person that has hired as well. So I want to kind of help give that perspective a little bit. I think also someone named Becky just joined. So we'll give her a second. Hey, Becky, welcome. I'm not going to put you too much on the spot, but are you joining? Are you in a certain career area? Or are you looking for any opportunities right now, just in terms of this presentation of job hunting in uncertain times?
Well, currently, right now, I am a preschool teacher, but my degree is in human resources.
So are you looking for a job or not really?
Yes, human resources.
Okay, wow. So a lot of you are looking for jobs. That's awesome to hear. It's definitely a great way to go, especially to level up your skills in other ways. So like, I think a lot of times people should always be looking for a job just to always know what's going on in the area anyway. So hopefully this presentation helps out in a lot of different ways. So the first thing we're really going to talk about here is finding opportunities. This is the very beginning of the job hunt process, right? And I cannot stress this part actually enough. This part is, again, the start of your funnel. If you're not looking for opportunities, if you're not actively applying, if you're not actively talking to people, you're never going to get through that funnel. There's just no way, right? So kind of just keep that in mind, as you do need to kind of scream out to the world like, hey, I'm looking for a job. And then hopefully one day it'll get through the funnel and get there, right? But if you're not open to it, it does become a little bit harder. So where do you find job listings to fill the funnel? Let's like just start kind of at the very beginning, the basics, all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to go through all of these individually, so don't feel like you need to read this slide. The first one is the one I always like to stress is family and friends. This is kind of a weird area though. This is an area that you can use to get into a lot of larger corporations to get in the door. I applied to CareSource a little while ago, back when I was looking for a job, and they literally had a line in there like, who do you know that works at CareSource? Like, and it's an actual thing. And when my dad's job is another corporate insurance firm, and on the thing, it was like, who do you know that works here, right? Like that's something that a lot of larger firms want to know to actually push you through their pipeline of like, hey, do we have someone that works here that knows you, right? So this is a good place to kind of just start, actually, is my personal opinion. LinkedIn is a great place to kind of go from there if you need to like see where people work. Hopefully that can help, but really if it's like your family or your friends, like your close family and friends, like you should know where they work, hopefully, I'm assuming. Yeah. And yeah, like Evan just said, a lot of people find the best luck with positions that they already know someone to help them get in the door. Yep. And I'm going to keep going through that. You'll see this common theme here. The other thing is teachers. I know a lot of you aren't really students anymore, but this is still something that I cannot stress enough for your students. If you're an advisor or if you're working with a chapter, is tell your students to talk to their teachers. When I was hiring, I did this internship program, and literally the only place I put the job listings was out to the 2 local colleges in the area. And I sent it to their business, like marketing departments and stuff, saying, hey, share this with your students. And every time I would get the exact number of people I needed to be able to hire for my internship, every time. But I never listed them anywhere else because it's a lot, students cost money, whatever, right? So kind of keep that in mind, is your school or your teachers around you, or if you're out of school now, your past teachers also might still know a lot of what's going on in the job market in that specific area. So make sure you're talking to them as well. and keeping that connection up. The next thing, I cannot stress enough, professional connections like APO. So use your connections from this. This can also be previous work experience connections, like coworkers you were close with, but really like Alpha Phi Omega is the way to go. When I lost my job, it was kind of sudden. It was very, hey, it's January 2nd. We're restructuring the company and you're not going to be in it. Yeah, kind of sucky. But what that did give me though was like, but you are going to be training someone, so you actually have like 3 months before we're actually going to like fully kick you out. We're just going to kind of like slowly like take you out of the company kind of thing, which was nice because then I had time. But one of the things that I did lean on the more than anything at first was my APO connections. I actually got interviews at multiple companies just because I knew a brother that worked in that company. So kind of keep that in mind, is they're there. That's always a connection you're going to have with someone is, hey, you're my brother. Like you're always going to have that connection. The next one, which is also one I really like to stress, is networking or career events. And I know this is like, you're kind of sitting here like, but like, they're not a thing because it's quarantine. Yes, they are. They're just different, which does make it a little bit harder though. So at these events, you need to know what you're looking for. Okay, you need to know what you're going to do when you're there. Because now that they're virtual, they tend to be like, oh, if you want to talk to this company, like sign up here. Or like, hey, we're gonna have a networking event, but like, we're gonna take like breakout rooms or something, right? So kind of keep that in mind is if you want to specifically talk to someone, make sure you know they're also gonna be there, okay? You'll be able to find these events at things like, if you're a student, again, career services, but meetup.com is actually a great place to find networking events or professional development events in your career field that then literally then become like an awesome networking. It's crazy. I know so many people that have gotten like jobs through meetup.com, like an event they found on Meetup. And then LinkedIn also does have some events. Also local organizations. I know that sounds kind of weird, but there's a lot of things. You might have like a teachers organization here, or there might be, for example, I was leaning heavily on the Chamber of Commerce. So areas kind of like that do have a lot of great opportunities for networking events. Another one is an industry conference. Again, depending on what industry you're in, again, being like now I work in the web development industry, that I'm not a developer or designer, but like I know many people from our company that either found Sparkbox from an industry conference and one of our people going there, or left Sparkbox because they went to an industry conference and then got hunted because they worked at Sparkbox, right? There's a lot of that kind of conferences can be huge for changing around jobs. So keep that in mind. So next is the most obvious one that we know of in today's day and age, and that's finding jobs online, right? I literally heard a commercial for Indeed, like on the radio this morning when I went grocery shopping. Like this is just where a lot of people are putting their hiring opportunities. So there's a ton of websites out there now. I listed some of my favorite ones and ones that I've heard really good things about. Indeed was actually where I found my current position. It does depend though on what role, like what industry you're in, I will say, depending on where you want to look for these. So Indeed can be really good for a lot of industries. Monster is one that I've also heard a lot of good things about. I specifically did not use that, but I have heard a lot of good things about it. LinkedIn is really helpful because it does show where your connection, if you have other connections in that company, you can see like how many employees they have. So you then know how big or small of a company they are, which can be a deal breaker for some people. You also then, if you're on LinkedIn, can see, for example, like me, I'm in social media and that's part of my job, is I can then see like, wow, this company hasn't run social media in 3 years. Roll my eyes heavily, in case you did not see that, because there's a nice little light going through my face. Anyway, so those are all three ones that have a lot of job opportunities on them. You also have ones like Glassdoor, which is also a great one to find places, but I definitely recommend Glassdoor. If you are going to apply to a place, at least look and see what reviews are on Glassdoor, like if there's a salary thing on Glassdoor, because sometimes you might get hired and then it's not what you thought it was. Glassdoor is a good place to find that out. I had a friend recently that just got a job that was not what she thought it was. And if you looked on Glassdoor, yeah, it did not sound like what she thought it was going to be either. It was just a bad situation. FlexJobs is one that I've heard is really great for remote work. So if you're specifically looking to work full-time remote, FlexJobs is one I've heard of that is awesome. AngelList is a good one for startups. Don't discount a company just because it's small. I've worked at 2 smaller companies under 50 people both times, and it's been an amazing experience each time. So keep that in mind. They also need employees too, right? LinkUp is one that I've heard is more recent, and I've heard that they're very up to date. I know someone mentioned that it's sometimes hard because companies like won't be honest with what they're actually looking for, right? That's one I've heard that they do very carefully keep it up to date. Scouted is one I've also heard of for local graduates. I feel like it's more of a recruiting site. I have not used it. I've just heard about it. And then also there's a thing called Snag a Job, which is specifically for hourly jobs. So again, there's all of these online places to look for jobs. So use them. Again, fill those opportunities as much as you possibly can to hopefully get a job out of it at the end, right? That's the whole goal here. But the one thing I challenge you to do is I want you also to think about what are then search terms you can use to find a job opportunity. It's uncertain times, right? Right now we're in the midst of COVID, right? But uncertain times come around all the time. So what are some search terms you could use to look on these online platforms to find a potential job? For example, I am in marketing and entrepreneurship. My first job was called marketing account director. So descriptive, right? But when I was actually looking up jobs, I started just looking up marketing and I was like, this is not getting me anywhere. And then I was like, wait, I have other skills. I should probably look up those, right? And then I started looking up things like entrepreneurship, proposal writing, social media, analytics, digital marketing, digital strategy, communications. Guess what? My title right now is communications specialist. I never would have found it had I not looked up the term communications, right? So just make sure you're also, when you're doing these online platforms, look up a ton of terms because a lot of companies call things different. Our HR director is called director of humans. Like, what? Right? If we were hiring, we'd probably say like HR or something, but like a lot of companies call things differently. So think about that when you're actually searching online of, hey, like I should probably look at a couple different areas and see what this means. The last thing here I really want to stress is that moving within a company happens all the time. So getting sometimes your foot in the door at a company to start, especially during uncertain times, if you know that they have positions that you want to be in the future, can be a really good place to start if you're not too sure on what you want to do, or if you're like, I want to be there, I'm just not quite there yet. So think about also sometimes the future a little bit as well. Do a little future planning. Story time, I told you it's going to happen. When I started at my first job, Commuter Ads, I got the internship, I was there, and then basically they created, I didn't think I was going to get a job out of it necessarily, but they ended up actually creating a marketing director position for me to move into. It wasn't a position that existed beforehand, and it kind of basically like moved into that, and which was nice. And then I ended up basically helping to create my own rules, what I wanted, what I needed to do, what I didn't need to do, which was nice. But that was just like, you never know when it's going to happen unless you're asking and telling the people in charge of those decisions, hey, yeah, like I do want to stay in Dayton. Yeah, like I would love to work here after school, right? If you're not telling them that, then they don't know that you want to move in a different area. Also at my current company right now, we have we have 3 different areas of people. We have developers, which work on like the actual coding of a site, right? Like the hard coding stuff. Then we have designers that work on like the beautiful, glittery, things on the site. This is a great description. I really hope my company's not seeing this because they're going to be like, you really don't. Yeah, we're just going to go on for that. And then we also have this like area called user experience, right? And they work with users and do a lot of testing and that kind of stuff. So we have 3 big areas. And we actually have people moving between those areas all of the time. Recently just had someone move from actually a project manager, so not even in those 3 areas, and moved into the UX sphere. And she's had all this experience in UX before. And then she told her director, like, hey, like I actually want to really dive into UX more. And then she ended up learning and taking lead on UX in some projects. And now she's our director of user experience. Right? We've also had people move from developer to designer because they just wanted to be a designer instead, right? And that happens all the time. So, but again, if you want something else within your company, talk to them, tell them, I want to learn in this area. I want to grow in this area, because then they'll give you projects to grow in that area. And then hopefully eventually you'll be in that area, right? So that was a lot, Kaitlyn. I know. So where am I actually going to find my next job? Well, it all depends. That's one of my favorite phrases. It all depends, right? There is no magic crystal ball. There is no like magic solution. But keep in mind that different careers will have different job listings. So depending on which field you're in, it will vary. You also might be surprised at how opportunities just happen. That's how I got my first job, was it kind of just happened. I was sitting, so the University of Dayton, the entrepreneurship program has these breakfasts, and 7 a.m., you're getting up early as a student, you don't want to be there. It's a Wednesday morning in the middle of the week, right? And you basically are sitting there with like 6 other people talking to one entrepreneur on the other side of the table. You can't get to talk to, and then he has to go present in front of everyone, and like, it's awful. So one of the second to last one of the year, I'm just sitting there and eating my breakfast, just like, well, at least I get free food out of this. But then something in his story just spiked me. I was like, wow, like this is really cool. Like, I actually kind of want to talk to this guy after. And of course, he was all the way across the table from me, so I didn't get to say 2 words to this guy. And so I walked up to him and I was like, hey, my name is Kaitlyn Nielsen. Hi, nice to meet you. Or I guess now elbows, right? I really enjoyed talking to you today, but I really didn't get to talk to you too much. And I actually have a lot of questions for you. Like, would you mind grabbing coffee sometime? He was floored by the fact that a tiny little sophomore, short, scared, little sophomore, went up to him, a professional, asked him to grab a coffee to talk more about his business. I walked out of that coffee with an interview for an internship, and then I ended up getting the internship. I didn't even apply the regular way, right? Sometimes they just happen. But again, the thing all comes down to this idea of it's all about filling the funnel. And especially during uncertain times, you might need to fill the funnel in areas you didn't necessarily think of originally. And that's why that funnel was wider up top. Is I'm in marketing, and I like the analytics side of marketing. I'm more of a data analyst and that kind of stuff, but I might look for jobs in social media or in proposal writing or in other things right now, just to get my foot in the door and get a job. And then hopefully when I'm in that door, I can move within that company to get more towards that analysis side, right? That's what changes in uncertain times, is you might need to kind of take something that's not necessarily ideal at first. Okay, that was awesome. We have all these opportunities, they're all in the funnel. Now, how do I get the job from there, right? This is kind of the area that I feel like a lot of people talk about. This is your interviews, your resumes, your assignments, your whiteboarding, your like all of that stuff. I would even say the offer is part of this, how you get the job kind of idea as well. There's so much in this area, and it varies so much by industry. I cannot stress that enough. Is this area and by company, like it's crazy. Like some companies will do like 5 interviews and you have to like interview all these people. And it's like this huge, like crazy, like, I mean, imagine like trying to get a job at Google, basically. Like I can't even imagine, I don't even want to go through that. Or if you're in a smaller company, which I love, then you're like, oh, like, let's just have a chat, right? And it becomes a little bit easier. So kind of keep that in mind, is that every company interview is going to have different things that they go through. So we're going to talk through all kind of these different ways to go through this. How do you land the plane of getting the job, basically? But again, my goal here today is really to hopefully give you all a different perspective on things. So what I'm challenging you through is in this section, as I'm talking about these things, you can go and do workshops on how to write resumes. You can go and do workshops on how to do an interview. But I want you to think through this section about what the employer is seeing you as during these actions. That's my challenge to you, because it doesn't come down to, oh, they were really good at like this certain skill. Like, yes, it does, but so many people can walk in the door with that skill. In the end, it's how you present yourself that kind of can make a big difference. So in this area, we are going to be thinking about how the employer is seeing you a lot. So again, this is not about like, oh, here's your resume. No, I will talk about that, but it's more about how is the employer seeing your resume, right? So the first things first is you need to apply the right way. I cannot stress this enough. So you found the job. Let's say you found it on a job hunt site, right? Awesome, great. If you are applying on like an Indeed or like a LinkedIn, they'll be like, hey, click here to easy apply. Don't do that. I cannot stress that enough. Don't do that, okay? go to the organization's website. First off, always check them out on their home base, right? Because as an employer, I want to see that people actually, first off, know what we do, know what we stand for, and like know a little about like our companies and like maybe our history or something, or like something that's important to us, right? And then apply through their website if you can. Apply through that kind of process, because then as an employer, I'm seeing like, oh, like they did take the time to fill out like our actual application thing, right? And do it the right way, right? Keep that in mind. Yes. So yeah. Yep. Are you the kind of person that the people at the company would like to sit next to at a company picnic? Exactly. Yeah. And it comes down to this idea of, it's more about, they want to see that you're a responsible human. A lot of companies, especially when you're not at a very huge company, I will say when you're at especially a smaller company, our COO says this all the time. He's like, I'm going to treat everyone here like adults and like they're like humans. Let them, like they're humans, they're adults. They're allowed to take their time as much as they want. They're allowed to do whatever they want to do, right? Yeah, they need to get the job done, but that's on them, right? That's what he always says all the time. So that's what they want to see. So when you're applying, they want to see that you took that initiative to go to their site, going through their process and that kind of stuff, right? I cannot tell you enough. When I did this internship program, I had specific instructions of send a PDF of your resume to my email address. How many Word doc resumes I got was insane. I was like, I specifically said PDF for a reason, but thank you anyway for applying, right? I did not necessarily rule it out right away, but if I had a big pool of people applying and someone sent me a Word doc when I specifically said PDF, it would get thrown out 100%. Like, yeah, definitely. So now the resume. So let's say now you've gotten to their website, you're going through the application process, you're filling out those questions, yada, yada. Now you have your resume. Whew. Yeah, resumes can take a lot of time. They really do. If you're really going through the process of going through resume, like it should actually it takes time. I'd say finding a job is actually a job in and of itself. It could be a full-time job if you're going crazy on it, or at least a part-time job. So keep that in mind, especially if you have a job right now, like this does take time. A couple of key things about resumes, think about order. Do you have relevant experience? Like have that higher up. Like if I'm an employer, there we go, looking at your resume, what do I want to see, right? What do I want to have my eyes drawn to, right? If you're just starting out, or if you don't have any like really good relevant experience, like try to find the relevant experience as much as possible and put it to the top, flow it up. Don't just copy and paste every time. Don't just take the exact same resume and put it in for every single job, because it does change a little bit. There are things that certain people are looking for. So now a little bit backstory of me. This is my first resume. Pretty bad. It's fine. I didn't have any relevant experience, right? I was just starting out. This is before I even had my first internship with commuter ads. So like full on, I was like, my experience was like awful, right? So if you noticed, I highlighted education first, and then my skills was second to try and highlight some of the stuff that I had gained over the course of my life, basically 20 years of it at that point, I guess. No, 19. Yeah. 20? Is that sophomore? I don't know. Well, 20. So then, if you noticed, I mentioned this little area of special project. I was looking for specifically an area in entrepreneurship. I was looking to work in a startup. So I put that in there specifically to be like, hey, I did this really cool project that applies to exactly the thing I'm trying to apply to, right? This was actually, I think, the resume that I did submit to commuter ads once they asked me for it. So I wanted to make sure that entrepreneurship was on the top. And then notice my experience is really lacking in case if you're actually reading it. I'm so sorry. It's just bad. And if you notice, like that stuff's kind of a little bit lower down and like not a big deal, right? And I did try to like order it a little bit differently because like I wanted to show like, hey, like I have a job currently that like I do put passion into. Like, hey, like I know how to sell and I know how to be a customer service rep, because part of it was also talking to clients. Hey, like I know how to sell ×2, right? And then, oh, look, I do volunteer work and I have a lot of activities, which are like important and good talking points, but not something you're going to pull my resume out initially for, right? Specifically to that person I knew was looking at it. So there's a lot of things on here. It was great for my first resume for what I was doing, but it wouldn't fly anymore, right? And it wouldn't fly for where I'm at now in my career either, right? So my current resume is very different, as you can see. So I did recreate this when I was finding my new position. I am in like a semi-creative field, if you want to call, like marketing is a kind of creative field. So people expect to see some type of creative something on your resume. So I did do some design stuff. Canva is free. It's awesome. In case you need to do this, literally Canva is the best place to do this. But if you notice, I also made sure the design was complementing what I was putting out there. The design was not distracting. It complemented how my resume was outlined. See, so pretty, right? If you notice now, I have a ton of relevant experience. So I did not highlight education anymore. Notice my education is like this like little slight thing off to the side that just like has a bolded University of Dayton and then has like my degree and then like that's it. Like I don't highlight like, oh, I graduated magna cum laude from university. No, like they don't care at this point. They care about my experience, the other things that I'm doing. I also added some awards because I had some awards in social media and that was part of the job. I still highlighted my volunteer work because I knew my company was very big on empathy and humility and other things. So I wanted to make sure they saw that I also did things outside of just like, hey, I work. Makes me a little more human to their eyes, right? I also updated my skills each time to specifically be for that company. Like, what are they looking for? And can I offer those skills, use their language, that kind of stuff. The other thing, which is something I definitely challenge everyone to do, is you see there's all these bullet points in here and it might look a little busy, but I put concrete details about my job and what my job was in those times. Because marketing account director can mean so many different things, right? And I want to just highlight for a second this like second bullet in here because it's beautiful. And I'm still proud of this bullet, but it says assisted in new market development initiatives through in-person meetings and RFP proposals, increasing company growth by 177%. Drop mic. What? 177% growth? Yeah, right. But part of that line actually got me my job. Fun fact, right? Like they actually didn't even realize they wanted someone that like was that good at RFP proposals. Like they wanted someone that like could do them, but it wasn't a big thing for them. But I didn't know that because their job description did have proposals on it. So I was like, I'm gonna put it on like the top thing of my thing then. And they were like, oh, like someone does actually know how to do that on top of all these other skills we'd also like to see. Cool, we're gonna hire this person, right? That's actually exactly how that happened. So rearrange those bullet points as well and make them as specific as possible because then they can now see like, wow, she does know what she's doing in that area, right? Okay. Okay, cover letters. I hate cover letters. I just want to say that out loud because I think they're annoying and they're only good in a couple situations. They're only good in a situation where if you are in, let's say you're in like field X, like you are doing this position and like you could do X, Y, and Z, but like you're really good at X. And then you're applying for a job that's Z and you really want to do Z. Like you're like, I actually really am interested in Z and I want to learn how to get to Z. That's where a cover letter is helpful is you can then say like, hey, I know I'm doing this right now. I see this job has also this idea in it and I'd really like to learn more about that. This is a place for you to be honest and like tell people basically, hey, I'm a human and I want to change my job a little bit or like, hey, like I am here and I'm human, right? This is a great place to also to put keywords in and other things like that. Because guess what? Robots read your resume and cover letter at a lot of companies. Just letting you know, robots do a lot of the work nowadays. It's the times we live in, right? So if you have a chance to put in some keywords or some things from their actual job description, put it in the cover letter because a lot of times people don't read it that often. I'll tell you that right now. And then you're going to get past the robots. But don't just stuff it full of keywords. Make that at least relevant, right? Don't just like throw them in there, right? Okay. Again, don't just copy and paste. You're going to miss something. And then as an employer, I am going to then see, oh, they didn't paste the right company name in here. Whoops. Can't say that ever happened. Right? So keep that in mind as you're doing also cover letters. Like do make it personal and do really read through it and think about how you want them to perceive you. Again, going back to the idea of what are they looking for and how can you bring that to the table? Okay, interviews. Again, people can talk about interviews for like days, right? So a couple just things, a general thing about the interview process is being yourself. This goes back to what Sean mentioned with the barbecue test, kind of. it's not necessarily about you want to fit in with their culture, but they want to be able to at least know who you are, right? They don't want to be like, oh, you're this person. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, they're like, wow, you're not the same person we hired. And then now they're questioning why they hired you. That is not a good situation to be in at all. Trust me, I did one of those. I had one of those people that I hired. Oh my gosh, this guy we hired. I'm sorry, this is a story I actually wasn't planning to tell, but now I think it's really relevant. Strap yourself in. This is a doozy. We hired this guy, and he, in his interview process, seemed very formal. Like, he just was awesome. He was doing a sales position, so like he had to impress kind of on that side. He was awesome. Like, he impressed everyone, all this stuff. And then he comes to Dayton. He was in a different city, and then our Dayton was our home office. So he came into Dayton to like, you know, like his first day training kind of stuff. And I happened to be the person picking him up from the airport. I was like, okay, like, let's just see how this goes. And he gets off the plane in like sweats, and like just all of the stuff is in a backpack. I was like, huh, okay. And I was like, do you want to change before we go to the office? And he's like, no, it'll be fine. I was like, okay, not my problem. And then he would get to the office, he still didn't change. So he shows up on his first day on the job in sweats and all this stuff, and like was on his phone all the time, didn't have a credit card. Like, oh my gosh, it was just the craziest situation. But in the interview process, we thought he was like this really buttoned up guy. And then the first day, all of a sudden he walks in sweats, right? So kind of just a weird thing there. So just relax. Also, take a moment to think. As a person that's done interviews before, like, I'm okay if you take a moment to find a good answer, right? Also, do the research on the company and the role. Please, 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 please. I actually had a printout of the job description next to me as I was doing my Zoom interview with my company that I'm working at now. And that helped me because I was able then to highlight some things that I wanted to talk about with them. Prepare answers to common questions. Just Google like common interview questions and just be prepared to answer some of those, but then also be prepared with questions for them, okay? Sorry, Evan has a question. I'm gonna try and see if I can read this. Resumes, copy and pasting things from the job description, like maybe the whole thing, and they're putting it in the resumes in white font, so it blends in on the page and it's really small. That's why, but yep, yeah, I have heard about this tactic that what he's saying is basically people will copy and paste things from the job description and put them in white on the background of the resume to make it so it goes past the robots. Just don't do it. Oh my gosh. I would say don't do it. Just because then they're going to question like, why did this get passed? Right? So I don't, it's a weird misleading thing that like robots are reading your resume, but like, oh gosh, it bothers me so much. Like, because you want to get past that section, right? So I would just try to put them organically in your resume as much as possible. And that's again why I'm talking about personalizing your resume and personalizing your cover letter. Because if you can use their language, that's going to help you get past those robots as well. Yeah, but yeah, people are doing that. I've seen that too. And it works though. It does get them through, but I'm just like, whew, what happens when you're in the interview and you actually don't know what you said you did on the job description? Okay, there you go. So take a screenshot of this, interview do's and don'ts. These are ones personal to me that I think have been really helpful to me. So I'm just gonna highlight one on each side though. Is do ask about next steps. And because a lot of companies nowadays, as I'm pretty sure, was it Deirdre? Deirdre said about how companies will like ghost you. Like basically, I was floored by how many companies ghosted me during this process of finding a job. Like, oh my gosh, I was so mad. I was so mad. So it gave me an excuse then to follow up, okay? The second one, so now for don'ts, a lot of people will tell you in interviews, it's good to like find something on their wall or at their desk or like whatever and like try to make it personal, right? Like, I have a dog. You could say like, hey, I like dogs too, right? Okay, whatever, okay? But don't get too personal. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. It's actually also this person that was interviewing was an APO brother. So I actually had known her and our CEO talked to her at an event. She happened to then find out about the job, didn't even know I was the person in charge of the job. And she was applying for the internship. And So she came in for an interview. I already knew her pretty well. So I was like, yeah, like, let's just talk through like some of the stuff on the job and see how like this goes. I personally really like you. I think you'd do great in this role, but like, let's also make sure you do interviews with other people at the company. So she talked with some other people. And then the last part of this is talking with our CEO. And they happened for some reason this time to be talking out in the open. So everyone could hear their conversations. We had a very open office space. We were a small company. And she brought up, there were pictures. So this company was founded by my CEO and his, at the time, wife. And there was articles about like the power couple, yada, yada, right? Like, you know, power couple starts company, right? And she's going through the interview process. It's going really well. Like, you can tell he's really impressed with her. And then she's like, oh yeah, and I just really love those like cute pictures of your wife and your kids, like just so cute. Like I've also like, I really actually want to meet your wife. Like, is she still involved in the company? Like, I hope like, she said something about like her involvement in the company, which she wasn't involved anymore because they were going through a really bad divorce. Ooh, right? So now she's bringing up a very sore topic for him that just happened, that like, oh, now you're bringing up his ex-wife. He actually almost didn't hire her because of that. So again, be personal and personable, but don't get too personal, okay? Just saying. Also, when you're given an assignment or a whiteboarding task, whatever it may be, do the assignment that's asked of you. I cannot stress that enough. When I gave assignments for my interviews, I made sure it was a very small assignment, but something they would actually do in their day-to-day. And there was one that just did it completely wrong. And they like had impressed me pretty well in the interview. Like, I had two that were kind of like neck and neck. And that assignment was actually what it came down to. I was like, if I can't trust you to do this one assignment that isn't that hard and something I would ask you to do on a daily basis, I can't hire you. So kind of keep that in mind, is make sure to know what the assignment is and ask if you have questions about it as well. Okay, just keeping that in mind. We're also running out of time, so I am gonna start going a little faster. I apologize, my story time does get a little bit distracting. Sorry, everyone. So also be prepared to get the job. I know that might sound really silly, but sometimes a job process can move very, very fast. My job at Sparkbox, I literally had my first interview and I had the job. Actually, when I submitted my resume and everything, I had the job and the offer within maybe a week and a half to 2 weeks. When you're at a smaller company or something and they like you, they're just gonna like push you through the process. They're done. Like, okay, we're great, right? But that also doesn't give you a lot of time to like think about like, wow, what benefits do I want? What salary do I need? So look at Glassdoor, lean on other resources, but know your minimum. My sister just took a job out in Chicago, and they were offering her a pretty low salary. It was a little bit right at her minimum of what she could use to live, basically. It was at that point. So what she did was like, this is my minimum I can take, and what you're offering me. Like, this is absolute it. But what I want you to do then, I have an hour and a half commute into the city. So I only want to come into the city 2 days a week. And they gave her the job, right? So know your minimum and know also what you can negotiate on. So be prepared to kind of have that conversation with people. So after, I just challenge you all to really make an organization process for yourself. If you're going into this job hunting process, make a spreadsheet, make a Google Doc, make whatever works for you of where you're at in the process on each job and what their deadlines are, things like that, when you submitted things, who to talk to, just have it all organized. It'll help you a lot. I actually had like 2 interviews like back to back and stuff, and it was just very confusing. So if I didn't have it written down, it would not have worked. So make sure you find an organization process for yourself before you go through all this stuff. Okay, keep in mind, it's also about interviewing them. I know during uncertain times, it's harder to get in that process of like, well, I just want a job, right? Yes, I understand. However, you don't want to take a job that's awful either. I've been in a really awful job before. It's not fun, okay? So keep that in mind. For example, now I'm on my soapbox here. I had an interview process during my look for a job at Sparkbox, and this company, like, I had 2 people actually that worked there, and they both told me like, I like my department, but the marketing department is different. what does that mean? What does different mean, right? I was kind of sitting there like, oh gosh, what does this actually mean? So I'm like going through the interview process. My manager, who would be manager, right, asked me to do a phone interview on a Saturday. Huh. Okay. Interesting. Not what I'm used to. And then when I passed that, apparently, they had me go in for an interview, and there was this guy there who was one of the like higher ups, like kind of like right under CEO level, like, and he was basically interviewing me, like he was like looking through my documents I brought, like looking for a mistake, and then would like basically give me like fatherly advice throughout the entire interview. And I was like, this is not how I want to be treated. I don't want to be pulled in on a Saturday and treated like talked down to. I know I look young, but like, come on. Like, I'm still here as a professional and an adult. Like, don't talk down to me. So I ended up basically not taking a job from them. I actually declined their job because of that. So last section, I have 3 minutes. Oh gosh, we're not going to make it, but it's fine. Uncertainty changes things. Okay. What does this mean on the job process? I've already talked about the funnel changes. You need to be putting opportunities in to then be able to get farther down, because companies are not taking risks. I cannot say that enough. Companies do not want to take a risk on someone they don't think would be good in a position, because they don't want to go through the hiring process again during all these uncertain times, right? Now, there's a lot of companies out there, normally I'd ask you these questions, but there's a lot of companies out there that are actually going to full-time remote positions and opportunities for their employees, right? So one thing that you need to think about in this specific uncertain time of COVID is, would you want a fully remote position if you could? Like, what do you want, right? Remote is great in certain fields, not in others. Also, it's great for certain people and not for others. I personally really hate working remotely, right? But you need to know that for yourself, okay? So one thing is, it is going to be a thing past COVID. A lot of people are now realizing, oh, like people can work remote on these positions. Like, we'll just cut down the office space and save overhead and all this stuff, which is fine and a whole other thing. But make sure when you're in the interview process, you're asking what they're doing for an office space, because a lot of people, like my company, have changed that. Keep in mind that if you start remote, you might not stay remote, okay? Also, know what you want moving forward. If you want to be able to work remote 2 days a week, make sure you tell them that. Also, I want you to really think about this when you're applying for a job, is companies that were not remote before COVID at all are not as equipped to have remote work now, or I would argue remote work after COVID. That is a full opinion, but my company Sparkbox was 40-50% remote before COVID happened. We already had Zoom links on all of our meetings. Like, this was not anything new to us. So when we went remote, it was not a big deal at all. So, but other companies, it was a huge deal. It was a huge change. A lot of things changed, and they're still not quite figuring it out. So keep that in mind as you're going through this process of if you're going to do remote work, if they were remote beforehand or not. Because also, if you want to be remote afterwards, you're going to want a company that did some type of remote work before COVID. Okay. I would normally ask you this, sorry, we only have 1 minute left, but uncertainty comes in many different forms and places. COVID is obviously one that happened kind of out of the blue. So do recessions though as well, right? There's a lot of things that change that. Also the election created a lot of uncertainty for a lot of companies. So this kind of happens all the time, right? It's not something that's just right now. This is something that does happen a lot. Keep in mind, it's going to affect every industry differently, right? No industry is ever going to be safe, right? As we heard through accounting, right? We thought it was going to be safe. It actually wasn't, right? That happens all the time. Also, it can be a slippery slope. In uncertain times, just stay calm through the process and try to think a step ahead. I had a story here. I'm just going to skip through. Take a screenshot of this. Do it. Just right there. My biggest 3 tips for finding a job in uncertain times. Be open to opportunities that might not be the one, but do not settle for an unrelated or a terrible long-term job. Just don't do it, right? If you find something within at least your field, somewhere in the greater field of your job, that's awesome. And then you can move closer to like where you want to be as the one, right? But try to stay in your field if you can. right? Sometimes you might take a part-time somewhere else to get some money, that's fine, but try to still find something in your field. Take the effort. Understand that getting a job is a big step, okay? But especially for your students or anything like that, like you have all of your life to move up the ladder and shift roles. So keep that in mind of right now, like I still have 40 years left in my career. I don't need to be a marketing director. It was great while it lasted for the whole year and a half, but I don't need to be a marketing director right now in my life, right? So kind of keep that in mind is like, yeah, if I want to move up into management, that's great, but sometimes you might need to be like here for a little bit and then work your way in a company up to that, right? So kind of keep that in mind is sometimes they also want to see you grow for them as well. Also, know that companies are not going to be taking big risks. So you might have to fight and impress them more to get the job. I've kind of harped on this a lot, is that companies do not take risks during uncertain times. This is the biggest change, bar none. So you might have to fight a little bit harder. That's all I have today. I know that was kind of a lot, especially towards the end. So thank you very much for joining me. We are over time, but please contact me. You can screenshot that as well. I am on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, I would love to chat with you afterwards. Also, please, if you have any feedback for me, I do give presentations a lot, so I know I talked really fast, so please don't tell me that. But if you have any other feedback for me on my presentation skills, please, I would love to hear it. I'm always trying to grow as a presenter. So thank you very, very much. And I hope you all have a great rest of your RVC today. Awesome. I think that's it. I don't know how to do things. Okay, bye everyone.
Thanks for this. It was actually quite informative.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, feel free to contact me as well if you have any more questions or want to talk more through anything as well. Thank you.
Will do.